Well, welcome, creatives, community, kind folks out there. This is RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today is Thursday. That means it's Third Pillar Thursday. For those who don't know, the third pillar portion of the title stands for the third pillar of gaming, with combat and social interaction being the first and second pillars, the third pillar being exploration. Now, myself, I tend to focus in on the exploration portion of the third pillar of gaming in terms of using the environment to enhance our tabletop RPG experience. And this week we've been talking about science fiction. So I thought, well, why the hell not? Why don't we go into science fiction and the environment and using the environment within a science fiction realm, using it to enhance our from modern day all the way to far sci-fi environments, and then how could we basically translate those going backwards into our medieval, Victorian, ancient era, World War I era. It doesn't matter. Western, samurai, any of those themes, any of those settings. So how can we use those? Well, first of all, we basically, in essence, have two types of environments when we talk about science fiction or just about any tabletop RPG. And those are natural environments and man-made environments. And of course, there's always a blend of the two because, well, things happen, right? So let's go into the natural environment when it comes to science fiction. Now, one of the things that I love about using the environment is that you can always establish a very dynamic. It's like creating a dangerous triangle of sorts. You have your PCs, you have your adventurers, you have your player characters there doing their thing. You may have an adversary or a goal or monsters or creatures or robots or what have you. So you have that portion of it, and then you have the environment that complicates things. And to prove to you that the environment is great, think of some of your favorite movies or television shows, graphic novels, whatever kind of mass media you absorb, and believe you me, some of those encounters would not be quite as dynamic when your hero finally confronts a villain or your hero is surrounded by guards if the environment was not involved in it. Case in point, heroes are being chased by stormtroopers or whatnot. Is it cooler to have them, just fight in the hallway and then shoot it out? It's okay. It's pretty cool. But what if they were on the interior deck of a plane, and the back hatch opens up on a giant cargo plane as it's taking off, and when the plane is taking off, it begins to tilt, and the air pressure is starting to make things fall out of the plane, and all it takes is a simple kick in the chest, and one of the guards who's chasing after one of the player characters goes flying off into space, and maybe there's cargo that's strapped down and one of the cargo straps snaps, or someone has the idea of taking a very sharp battle knife or whatever and cutting the straps, and all of a sudden a 5-ton pallet of equipment starts sliding towards someone and maybe trapping them against the wall, or maybe it falls out of the plane and the parachute opens up and gets trapped around one of the blades of the plane or something. Well, the whole point is the environment and making it dynamic, making it dangerous, having it used and abused in your environment. I mean, in your gaming, your tabletop RPG experience. It's really cool. So what are some natural environments that we see in science fiction that maybe we don't really see in our more of our medieval, more of our swords and sandals and swords and sorceries type of settings? Well, one of those things is gravity. Gravity is a great element to throw into your games. And I'm basically going to divide this into high gravity. We have standard gravity, what we feel here on Earth. We have high gravity, low gravity, what you pretty much imagine people on the moon, bouncing on the moon, where it's very lightweight, and we have zero gravity. And all of those can have a really detrimental or advantageous effect on the player character, excuse me, and the adversaries they're fighting based on what's going on. Now, gravity is, I'm going to present to you that gravity is something that we perceive and has an effect on us, where it may be artificially applied to us, depending on the situation. So an example would be, here on Earth, there are planes that you can rent, and those planes fly into the air and they go into dives, and then when they go into a dive, they go into what is considered a negative G fall, so that they're falling at the same rate as the people and materials inside of it. So it makes a fake zero gravity environment, but however that's created, it's still a zero gravity environment, right? So another example would be, something falling into the atmosphere, and the player characters and adversaries are inside of a ship or space station or space elevator that's falling into the atmosphere. It's possible it could create a negative G environment, so it becomes zero G, or something might be accelerating so fast that it creates a heavy gravity environment where everything is pressed down because it is accelerating at such a great speed. Maybe some kind of like maglev or vacuum tube train, or maybe something is launching into space and the PCs and the adversaries are maybe in the cargo hold again, and they're being pressed down into the ground. So that's a heavy gravity environment. So depending on the game you're playing, whether it's like 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons or GURPS, or it doesn't matter. Heavy gravity, of course, presses a weight down. Now, if there are no rules for that, and I'm pretty sure if you're playing a sci-fi game, there should be some form of rules for heavy gravity. But if not, you can just consider heavy gravity to be like some form of encumbrance and use a very heavy encumbrance rulings for that, or even grappling rules by a particular strength, a level of strength based on the heavy gravity that's pressing everything down. And then I would add to that, when you try to throw items or try to move, anything that's launched through the air is going to have an extremely short range. It's going to be pressed down. Not sure, none of us know what it's like to, take a firearm, a slug thrower, and fire something through the air. But I'm pretty sure you try to throw a grenade or a knife or shoot a bow or a crossbow in a heavy gravity situation, that range is going to be severely truncated. It's going to be, you can have that, or even make it completely useless in a heavy gravity situation. Now, as far as what happens to the PCs and their adversaries if they're not adapted to it, or they didn't cause that particular situation, such as maybe the acceleration of a maglev train is so great that it's going out of control, and you wanted to create a dynamic situation where the players are like pressed back into their seats. So the gravity might not be what we would consider down, but it might be considered, you might want to consider the heavy gravity to be against a bulkhead based on the acceleration that's happening within the vehicle. I'm not describing it, and I don't really have a visual to give you, but I'm just imagining being in a maglev train, and the people facing forward in the trains accelerating forward is fine because they're pressed back in the seat. But if you try to move down the aisle, you're just going to get pressed. You're going to get thrown backwards. Similar. Oh, the movie. Oh, Wolverine fighting on top of the the high-speed trains in Japan. Is a perfect example of that, where it's moving so fast that if you don't hold on to something, you're going to be blown backwards, and you're going to have to hold on to, into cables or maybe even electric lines, or if you're Wolverine, jam your claws down into the ceiling of the vehicle. So Rickard says projectile weapons having off aim or lesser range, etc. in high gravity situations, hell yeah. And if the gravity is high enough, we do know that light bends. Now, at the point that gravity is bending light, I'm pretty sure your PCs are dead. But that being the case, yeah, it's possible for something to spin or twist if even if you're not on a heavy gravity planet, it's possible that maybe there's spin gravity in a space station and it's been thrown off by a hacker or sabotage, or an meteor impact has hit the space station and caused it to spin off of its axis. And Rickard says could have a localized phenomenon, especially if it's artificially created, like plates, like artificially created gravity. Essentially movie and television gravity, where it's very expensive to do spin and to portray it on live action. So you might have a spacecraft that has basically standard gravity rooms, and someone could go in, your friendly neighborhood robot that's part of your party, or one of your players is a hacker and turns the gravity up in a specific room. And so everyone in that room is just like, whoa, and they just fall back on their backs, or maybe it could even be powerful enough that their knees break or something. Rickard says, like a black hole that is contained within a field. So inside you might bend the light, but outside the field gravity is normal. Yeah. Even so, this could be, there is fiction where there are people who mine for black holes or create them artificially for fuel for starships or whatnot. There's always the idea of using black holes to, of course, power ships, or to open wormholes, or go to hyperspace, or whatever you want to call it, right? Space jaunting, or what have you. And the black hole itself could be in, like you said, a containment field, or some kind of multi-leveled radioactive container. And someone might be trying to open it up, and the player characters may have to go after the saboteurs, and they have to go through 3 levels of containment. The containment might be large enough for personnel to enter inside of it, and each level of containment might be heavier and heavier gravity until they get to the last chamber, and it's literally pressing them into the ground or pressing them up against the chamber because it's out of control, or they've affected the containment field itself. So yeah, heavy gravity is a great thing you can use in your game. Now, of course, I don't want to stick with just heavy gravity. We have light gravity and zero gravity. I know scientifically there literally is no such thing as zero gravity, that all objects in space, no matter how far away they are, it is in some way, shape, or form affected by gravity of all other planetary bodies in the universe. I get that. But functionally within our gaming experience, there's light gravity and zero gravity. Light gravity, of course, is, for lack of a better word, is like your fun time gravity. It's the, so on the moon, or pick your favorite light gravity location, like I can jump 80 feet in the air, and if I fall from, a 60-foot ledge or something, I'm not going to suffer that much damage. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? You make light gravity, you could very easily, if your science fiction game should have light gravity rules, but if not, double leaping distances, or have falling damage, or what have you, and then increase throwing ranges for things, double the lifting capacity for the PCs that are not normally adapted to those places, like on the moon. So if you can only lift, I could barely move 100 pounds. Well, on the moon, maybe you can move far more. Now, I am aware that light gravity, all gravity fluctuates between a range. So not all light gravity locations are exactly the same. But whatever the case may be, that maybe that's a little bit too into the, a little too behind baseball is a term where you might be getting a little too gritty with it. Is it 0.67 gravity? Is it 0.782 gravity? I don't know if you want to get that deep into the woods. But light gravity, you might want to do like a doubling, or doubling / halving of like people who fall down, or things of that nature. Now, one of the issues with light gravity, and I'm going to flow into zero gravity, is that I'm going to screw this up. I know I am, but weight and mass are two different things. So a very heavy, let's take your go back to the idea that I started with, like the 5-ton pallet of equipment in, and you're flying in a spacecraft or a ship or something like that. You got a 5-ton pallet of equipment. In heavy gravity, that 5-ton pallet is going to feel like it's 10 tons or more when it hits you. You're dead, right? You're trapped. Your limb is crushed or what have you. But in a light gravity situation, sure, the 5-ton pallet may be half its weight or even less when it moves. But when it hits you and lands on you, it is still, the mass of that object is still that hard. So it may be easier to dodge away from it and easier to get it moving. But when it stops and lands on you, it still has that 5-ton weight, 5-ton mass pressing down on you. So you can still suffer a lot of damage. So we get away from light gravity, where your range for throwing things and launching things is pretty much increased, at least doubled. Your leaping ranges are, and of course you can have why I call it fun gravity is, not only are you going to use this when you're going across the gray surface of the moon, but when you have habitats built, like for example, you have domed cities over. You may have dome cities over craters, right? And people living inside. You can have a running gun battle or what have you, where the PCs are leaping from building to building and across rooftops and things in this light gravity area, and have a lot of fun with them being able to leap 60 feet across the maglev train that's going underneath them and land on someone's balcony, and then they can leap off that balcony and leap upwards 5 stories to break into someone's home that has a balcony with, lightly swaying vines hanging off of their trellis, off of a trellis or something. I mean, you could have a lot of fun with that and have people jumping and falling. And also within an air breathing habitat, it's possible you can use wings, kites, and that kind of thing as well. Basically, not just parkour, but like extreme free running inside of a light gravity situation. So now we have zero gravity, and zero gravity, it should be in your sci-fi game rules if you're using another system. If not, zero gravity is one of those problems where when you impart momentum, what is it? An object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon, and zero gravity is very much a part of that, which is why you really don't want to fire a weapon or do something that's going to impart momentum to you when you're using it against someone else. So your gyrojet pistol or whatever slug thrower you have is really cool on Earth, but fire that in a starship or a zero gravity habitat, and it's going to impart momentum to you just as much as you imparting the energy going forward into your enemy. Now, you may not have a choice in the matter, whether you're using, I don't know, you grab a fire extinguisher off of the wall and use that to impart momentum to you. So that may be a way for you to move around. So unfortunately, if there's no momentum given to you and you're in the middle of a giant room, you're probably stuck and you're going to have to figure your way out of it. But you could do something like, again, grabbing the fire extinguisher and using that to impart momentum. Maybe if your spacesuit has like aerojets on it, where it fires off little bursts of air, or maybe CO2 or something of that nature, using and maybe there's some other kind of propulsion, whether it's magnetic or ionic or whatever have you, flames even, right? And Ricker says you could also throw a small object as well. Yes, if you have mass on you and you throw the mass off of your body, you then change your trajectory and then fall a different direction, i.e. that was visually shown pretty nastily in Love, Death, and Robots. Sorry, spoiler, lady gets stuck out, astronaut is stuck out in space, or I don't know what type of space person she is. She could be a cosmonaut or whatever. But anyway, she's out in space and she ends up having to take her glove off. Her hand freezes in the vacuum. She then breaks her own forearm off of her body with her knee and throws it in the opposite direction so that she does not go tumbling off into deep space. Okay, pretty nasty, but yes, possible. You could even momentum could even be imparted to you by having an open wound. If that blood is shooting away from you, spilling away from you, or even a dead body, you cut the throat of a guard in 0G, the blood's going to splurt one way and the guard's body is going to go the other direction while they're trying to, keep the blood coming out of their carotid artery. It can get pretty complicated. Rickard says, note on freezing in space, vacuum is great insulation. It'll staunch that bleed. It pretty much will staunch that bleeding, right? It'll freeze that stump right on up. Although I don't know how many PCs would want to crack their own forearm over their knee and toss their hand away. But yeah, Rickard says it won't freeze. Really? I did not know that. Now here we're kind of delving into the reality of the situation and versus the application of it. Yes, I know we now know science has proved and is proving that the vacuum of space isn't the exact, isn't what we think it is. Rickard says it won't freeze, the warmth has nowhere to go. I thought it would just radiate outwards. I didn't think it would remain. I thought it would just radiate outwards, like we're warm, our body's warm, but whatever the case may be. Again, that's a session 0 thing. Like, are we applying how much of the reality of what real vacuum is are we applying versus the 80s movie version where in 2 seconds when you go out into a vacuum of space, you freeze to death instantly, right? That's not how vacuum works. From what I understand, if you close your eyes and blow out all the air out of your lungs, like you won't even explode, like you won't get that explosive decompression because of the pressure inside of your body is pressing outwards, the air is pressing outwards. So it's something like that. But whatever the case may be, again, session 0, what kind of rules are you going to use for that? Do you want the comedically fast and dramatic, hey, I'm out in space and I'm a frozen popsicle? Or do you want to use the just as lethal but far slower and not quite as dramatic vacuum of space that we want to use here, which flowed from 0 gravity into space? One other thing about 0 gravity is, again, the imparting momentum. Take that 5-ton pallet of equipment in a cargo hold and suddenly it's in 0G. It may be moving slowly, or you can impart movement to it quite easily. But once it hits something or someone or crashes into something, it still has that 5-ton mass to it, or density, or whatever. I'm sure I'm butchering the terminology, but I understand I hope you guys understand what I'm saying about that. Rickard says, we are warm and our body dissipates warmth into the air. So while it will happen in space as well, it just takes a longer time as there is no air to steal the warmth. Okay. There's no medium to allow the heat to radiate out. I did not know that. Oh, I did not know that. See, learn something new every day. So again, the vacuum of space may not be as dangerous as you want to apply it. So again, we're playing role-playing games, right? How realistic versus how pulpy do you want it? If you're playing a hard sci-fi game, absolutely consider the fact that vacuum isn't what we think it is. But if you're playing more of a cinematic version, like I mentioned in a previous chat, cars don't explode when their gas tanks are ruptured. That's just not a thing that happens. But in the movies, they do. So, session 0, hey guys, we're playing very cinematic. I know you know what the rules of vacuum are, but in my game, you roll a d6, and that's how long it's going to take you to survive. If not, oh well. Ricky says, well, think the other way around. All the radiation from the sun hitting your body, got nowhere to go either. Yeah, so, okay, so now we talked a little bit about vacuum. We kind of flowed into that because vacuum and 0 gravity kind of flow together. And of course, within using vacuum and 0 gravity, you have the issue of being lost into space. I'm going to get to the radiation part too, because having encounters on the outside skin of a habitat or spacecraft or what have you, it of course is a great environment for you to use. You have to have we need to get from our space station to our spacecraft, and the easiest, since there's guards, the easiest way is to go out of a hatch or cut our way through a bulkhead and leap across space or something. Or hey, some kind of alien Cthulhuoid creature has attached to our spacecraft. We have to go out and get rid of it and get it off the skin of the ship before we go into warp drive, or come up with some kind of crazy excuse for your players to go out into a vacuum in their spacesuits. Of course, you're going to have maybe hold cables that hold them down. Magnetic boots are another thing. Some kind of jetpacks, short-lived jetpacks on their space suits or what have you. You're going to have all of those things, but the danger is being grabbed by a tentacle, thrown into space, being shot by that gyrojet pistol or that laser gun or that, I don't know, X-ray laser or gamma ray beam or whatever from your adversaries shooting at you while you're in the skin. And again, maybe shooting them and killing them may not be the most effective thing, but throwing a crowbar and knocking that person in the head and having them spin off in the deep space might be more effective. And of course, how strong is are those magnetic boots? How strong is that cable? How hard is it to cut it? You can come up with simple rules. Oh, it takes 10 hit points to finally cut through the cables, you know, and someone's like, oh, 10 hit points. I know they have like 90. I'm just going to shoot the cables out from them and let them, you know, spin off as the space station spins. And it's like, oh, there you go. That's a good idea. Now, we do have radiation. And radiation is one of those tension builders, I feel, that you can really use for science fiction. Yes, I know tension builders are a way for you as a game master to basically eliminate analysis paralysis, right? And the faster the tension builds, the greater chance you're going to have your PCs reacting to it, up until the point that they, of course, may decide never to go towards the source of danger unless the MacGuffin is in the way of their danger. So here's what I mean. Radiation could be a very long-term thing. Someone exposed to radiation over months, weeks, or days. That's a pretty long period of time. And exposure to that may have a detrimental effect, meaning that we think of radiation as mutating the cells or killing off cell growth or something of that nature. So there may be tablets or injections or anti-radiation baths or some kind of energy, almost like taking a shower to get rid of the radiation that's built up inside of the human body. So that may limit your PC's ability to maybe travel across the surface of a world that's hit with a lot of radiation, that doesn't have an atmosphere to block the radiation, or maybe there's a spacecraft that has a very limited amount of radiation protection, or you're close to a very heavy radiation source, close to a quasar, or close to the sun, or there are even planets, our own planets Saturn and Jupiter give off a lot of radiation as well. So you could have a thing where your players have to explore some, of course, abandoned habitat, because there's always going to be abandoned habitat, right? And they only have 3 days to explore it before they've got to get the heck out of there, because there's no radiation shielding to get back to their own ship, or take a anti-radiation injection or whatever is in your game. Now you can ramp up the amount of radiation. But Rickard says, last part about vacuum of space, you can apparently survive unprotected for about 90 seconds before you die of asphyxiation. Though not from the lack of breathable air, rather space mechanics from above. Yes, I now that part of it I did hear. I didn't hear about the warmth not going anywhere, not radiating away from your body. But I did hear from it's like you said, 90 seconds before you die of asphyxiation, because from what I understand, the air in your body, essentially you can't breathe in anything. Of course, there's vacuum, and all you're doing is building up CO2 inside of your lungs, so you have to release it. And I did hear that there is, like, if you close your eyes and mouth, you can survive quite unprotected for quite a bit. So yeah, pretty interesting. Now I'm sure we don't have actual physical the physical manifestations of what vacuum would happen, would have on the human body yet, but I'm sure it's going to happen. They may even, it would be pretty nasty, but they may even do tests on like cadavers, like animal cadavers, like pigs or something like that, before they try that out. Someone should do that experiment, although I know people would balk at the idea of taking, and of course the weight of taking dead animal carcasses first. Let's try it from that, and then you doing that on live specimens. But I think we should find that out. Like, how long does it take? What precautions can you take? So yeah, I did hear about that. Talking about vacuum. Now, of course, again, vacuum is a tension creator, right? PC goes into airlock. Enemy hacker tries to attack airlock to blow someone into space. How long do you have before the airlock opens, or airlock opens and everyone gets jettisoned out into space? How long do you have to grab onto something before you fly off into deep space? Who knows? A die roll, maybe the game master's like, you've got 3 rounds to grab onto the skin of the habitat before there's nothing to grab onto, what have you. And then of course the damage from space. Hey, you have, like you said, you've got 90 seconds. It might be, which would equivalent in 5th edition would be 15 rounds of survival before you die. On average, maybe modified up and down based on the person's constitution or something. So yeah, Rickard says, do not enter habitats, ships, etc. that have been abandoned or gone radio silent, disappeared, and suddenly reappeared, etc. Come on now. You can't tell people to do that. Going into the spaceship / abandoned habitat / no radio contact thing floating in space that hasn't been contacted for years, that suddenly disappeared or went silent or reappeared somewhere. That trope is so classic. It's the equivalent of going into the basement by yourself in the abandoned house, right? After you hear something creaking down there in the dark without a flashlight, right? That is the exact same thing, man. You can't stop that trope at all. But I hear you. It needs to be on a t-shirt. Like, hey, playing sci-fi, don't go into the abandoned habitat, reappeared, radio silent. We haven't seen them in 5 centuries. Starship or something that's floating around the dangerous planet or sun or something, or in orbit or whatever. Yeah, I get it. But again, with the radiation part or even the vacuum part, it's possible the radiation could be so powerful that you only have, instead of months or weeks or days, maybe it's down to hours. You can only, if you don't get your anti-radiation MacGuffin within hours, you will be affected by it, whether it's a withering effect that harms your DNA and then you'll just basically die from it, or it could be like the idea that there's actual cinematic mutation. You grow another eye, another hand grows off of your back, your skin changes colors, and a 3rd eye appears over your left temple or something. Ricker says, do you want to die / get infected by parasites / go mad, etc.? That's how you die / get infected by parasites / go mad, etc. Yeah. Of course it's the abandoned habitat / starship that reappeared / disappeared / radio silent that you go inside of and go mad / get infected by a parasite or I mean, yeah, that's chest burster territory / I'm going to kill my own crew because I saw something I shouldn't have / got infected by something that's going to drive me insane. You know what I mean? Uh-oh. Ricker comes out with his 3rd t-shirt. Quote, the corporation needs to pay double hazard pay for this gig. Random Marine, said by Random Marine as they dock to said abandoned habitat spaceship. Hey, listen, you got to have a couple of red shirts in there. I know that maybe you don't see the red. Maybe it's like their underwear. But yeah, they're wearing red shirts, man. You always have to have random space marine that's like, they need to pay double hazard for this, and go inside. And of course, something mysterious happens to them as the PCs find them and like, what happened? Oh, we don't know. Hey, let's bring him back to our spaceship so that it is inside of our safety zone, and then investigate what happened to this individual. Right? And of course, their eyes change and they start drooling, and then their body explodes up against the glass, and then someone's like, "We need to open the door to save him," and it spreads everywhere. Yeah, that's yes. We love that trope. We absolutely love it. The record says everyone who enters an abandoned or derelict place in space is wearing red shirts, whether they know it or not. Yeah, of course. So, um, so again, hazards and whatnot. Rickard brings up parasites slash going mad slash infected by parasites, all that kind of business. Another hazard, right? Hey, it's you're going into an environment where something may adhere to your spacesuit, or you may be breathing in spores, or you may see something that man was not meant not meant to see, right? Those are plenty of hazards that you can have. The in eclipse phase, it's the basilisk hack, where all it takes is for you to see code, and that code infects your brain with some kind of a terrible hypnotic pattern or behavior that is triggered by something else, and then you just go mad and want to kill people or kill yourself in some kind of bizarre, strange, uh, kind of strange way. Yeah, you're not going to pull your laser pistol and shoot yourself in the head. You're going to undo all the safety parameters on the containment field around the black hole that powers your starship, because that's what you do, right? Dennis Drangler says the meteor cave that turns out to be a space worm. Yeah, of course. Hey, we're going into a safe place to be. Why is it warm in here, and why is it spongy on the floor? Right? Why is the cave closing with sharp spikes? I don't understand. Yeah. Yeah, plot twist. Plot twist. You are now the parasite. I see you there. Yeah. Okay. So we've got ourselves radiation as well. Radiation. We went down to hours. Now, if you take radiation down to affecting from minutes to seconds, radiation itself could be something that burns you, withers you. Using fifth edition as an example, maybe you're in a space station that causes necrotic damage, or um, acid damage, or poison damage, or maybe a combination thereof, where you have to make saves every hour, or you have to make saves every minute, every 10 rounds, or it could be literally, if the radiation is so powerful, like the example, the containment field that's open and blasting radiation throughout the ship, and you've got to get the heck out of there. Every round you might be taking like a die 6 of random necrotic damage or something, or whatever. Tesla says moisture in space caves should have been a dead giveaway. No. You listen. The trope is you've got to poke and prod and maybe even taste what the hell's going on. It's like, oh, this is soft and the moist. What is that? Doesn't taste too bad. Rickard says the Reavers in Firefly, even if you survive an attack, you will be so horrified by what you've seen that you turn into one of them to cope. Ooh, yeah. Of course, there's that's another tension generator, the spread of something. So of course the trope is we have a little sample and we need to study it, and it's in a safe bottle slash petri dish slash containment room, and of course someone has to go inside, and in the middle of the night when everyone is resting, or there's the one person, the one red shirt that is working against everyone else, that has to poke it slash taste it slash put it in their pocket or whatever. So you do have the spreading of whatever the case may be, the spreading of something that's growing, maybe it's nanotech or what have you, to really ramp up something. Like maybe PCs are like, why is that stuff growing on the walls? And then they realize, like, oh, it's growing on everything. It might be on us. We need to get the hell out of here. Hey, thanks for the thumbs. Zev mentioned replicators earlier this week. Yep. Replicators are a thing. They are called many things in many games. Eclipse Phase calls them cornucopia machines. Some call them nanofabricators. Star Trek's got their replicators. It's the Earl Grey hot, and it's created, and in a taken to its we love Star Trek because it is a bit sanitized, because that's not the point. But you and I all know that people are going to create or modify those replicators in ways in which they really shouldn't. And to have it hacked or broken or modified, or and it was infected by an electronic virus to create something it shouldn't have, or will continue to create something it shouldn't have, is a great possibility, right? That if that replicator is like, oh, what is that? Anthrax? Is that Ebola? Ebola Z? Um, yeah, yeah, definitely. Rickard says, referring more to the Stargate version of nanomachines that only live to replicate, so spreads like a plague. Of course, what's the von Neumann? I guess that's the last name. The von Neumann idea, where nanotech, the idea that nanotech is created so that it is able to replicate itself, so that it is a self-replicating um, nano machines that are out for a particular purpose, whether it is to dismantle living flesh or to build something, nanotechnology that is there to build its own factory to create itself. Yeah. A Dead Man says, or worse, the replicators from Stargate SG-1. Yep. Now, in your setting, you, especially like in Eclipse phase, hey, Dead Man, I'm glad you're here. Well, you're always here, but thanks very much. In Eclipse phase, there is a difference between standard nanotech and von Neumann's, that there is an accepted rule that you never create von Neumann machines. So maybe nanotech is affected by electrical pulses, or is required to receive, like they perform their job and then go dormant. For example, that you may have a gland inside of your body that produces nanomachines, like called metachines in Eclipse phase. But whatever the case may be, they may be created to heal you, and then they stop. They just flush out of your system once they repair your broken bones or something like that. Yeah, Dennis Drangler says a repair drone that sprays nano repair bots on hull damage. Exactly. They could have a limited purpose, like you said, spraying nanotech on a hull, and then it stops functioning. But Rickard said, quote, "You never create X, mad scientist. I wonder if it's possible to create X." There's always someone that does that. Like, we're not supposed to do that. I wonder if I do that thing that they tell me not to do, I wonder what's going to happen. There's always someone who does that. So yeah, it's out there. And the scary part of like nanotech is the idea that you probably can't see it, or it's like dust, and you don't know what its purpose is. So it may not just, like, for example, you don't necessarily have to have nanotech that just disintegrates things, eats it away. It may be constructing something, or giving birth to something, or changing the DNA of something, and finding a way to get rid of it. Now, it's possible that the nanotech could be so fragile that your own like white blood systems could fight it off, or it might be so nanotech might be so robust that really the only way to stop it is to have like nano hunters, like a nanotech spray, like an aerosol or something, whose only purpose is to hunt down other nanotech to kill it, which might be another MacGuffin the players may have to go after to find. It says it's not Monster Monday, but the nano cloud swarm that moves through the ventilation in said habitat. Of course, there's the we need to close off the HVAC system, and then someone taps someone else on the shoulder and says, "You do realize if we close that off, that we're going to run out of breathable air. That's why the ventilation system is on." And like, yeah, we need to close it off. Again, tension generator, right? Do you fire your blaster at yet another roving robot, or do you stop to close off the ventilation system, right? Who does that? Who's more effective, especially if it's causing damage or loss of stats like weakness, maybe loss of strength or dexterity, or maybe even intelligence or wisdom because it's driving you crazy. That could be a thing that's happening. Now, we also have ourselves, and I'm going to bring up some of the environments that we could encounter as people, but sometimes these flow into like spacecraft, starcraft things. Right. So in natural environments, Rick says, you do realize that if we breathe in nano monsters, we will stop to breathe the breathable air, right? Yeah. Uh, Deadman says SRNs, self-replicating nanomachines, are a thing in eclipse phase. Yeah, and I believe in eclipse phase that the idea of not creating self-replicating nanotech is because while it may benefit you temporarily, there's the idea that someone else could modify it, or it can get out of hand. Yeah, I hate SRNs. Yeah, yeah, don't put that on a T-shirt without the context behind it. Please don't do that. But yes, there's the danger of, hey, I've got nanomachines in my body, and that radiation pulse from a solar flare just caused them to do what they're not supposed to do, right? Or you release, yeah, it can get out of hand. What do you mean? What do you mean, can? Will. Yeah, replace the word can with will, right? Yeah, it can get out of hand. What do you mean, can? Right? So of course you're going to have your nanotech swarms that are going to get out of control, out of their containment field, because the red shirt has to poke it with their finger, or inside of an abandoned space habitat. Of course, that's going to happen. Now, there are we do have ourselves alien planets, from everything in our own solar system to things in the outer world, and essentially cinematically, it's many of those are environments we find on our own Earth with the volume turned up to 11, right? So if for example, Mercury, let's go from the inner planets to the outer planets, right? You have yourself Mercury. Now, yes, Mercury spins so slow that the terminus of the cold side versus the hot side, you could literally outwalk it. I know that's the real thing, but what's the movie? Vin Diesel. Oh shoot, I forgot it already. Vin Diesel, Cyber Eyes, Prison Planet. Anyway, the idea of a cold planet where when the sun comes up, is it pitch black? It is the Pitch Black series, but it's the one where Riddick. Thank you, Drangler. Dead man, you're falling back on me, dude. I'm just messing with you, man. Yeah, it's in the Pitch Black series, the Riddick movie, where they're in the prison and the prison is underground. The reason being is that the prison is underground is because when the sun is down and it's nighttime, it's freezing cold. When the sun comes up, the terminus hits and the sun blasts everything into like this. It basically is like a blasted lava hellscape, because the sun comes up, and so outrunning the terminus before the sun blasts everything to and your PCs in the bits is a thing that, again, volume turned up to 11, right? I understand Mercury doesn't work that way, but you could very much have planets that have extremes to them. Another extreme would be from the movie, I was about to say Inception. Wow, doesn't matter. Okay, people land on planet. It's basically only got need depth. There's the entire planet's covered with water, and it's only at down to your knees, and you're like, Interstellar, thank you very much for that. And they're like, oh, hey, this isn't too bad. I don't see what the problem is. And then they're like, there's a mountain range on the horizon. They're like, that's not a mountain range. That's a, I don't know, 1.5 tall wave from, gravity from the black hole that's sweeping across the planet every moment, right? So again, sure, we have, waves that are pound coast all the time on Earth. Volume turned up to 11. Rickard says, imagine how trippy it would be to walk faster than the planet revolves, but you still have a day-night cycle. I still think that's kind of cool, especially if you have, either you could walk it, or you could have like a city on rails maybe, or a crawler, like you could have crawler mechs where you have arcologies that are on wheels, where they roll fast enough that they're always ahead of the day-night cycle, and so the sun is constantly rising on the horizon, and you're moving fast enough to beat it. That would be kind of cool, and again, kind of trippy. Where again, there's a tension generator, right? If you're in the full sun, blazing sun, you might die from it, get blasted into, melted and whatnot, and you could have a running gunfight. It would not benefit you to grapple someone because both of you might be vulnerable to the rising sun. So not only do you have to fight your enemies, but you yourself and your enemies are constantly outrunning the sun. And as long as you can walk or run faster than the sun can rise, you're safe. But the first person to trip and fall, boom. And again, here we go into my silly thing about the shove maneuver, about knocking someone down might actually have a purpose in this. Sure, I know when they're around, they can just get the hell back up. But hey, knock them down into a pit or grapple them or get them entangled in something, and Rika says pub crawling as long as the night lasts. Wow, that makes perfect sense. That honestly, that would be great on a planet where you could pub crawl all night long, as long as you can move and drink faster than the pub closes. Like, hey, you've got 2 hours. That's it. Tesla says Mercury's solar day lasts 176 Earth days, so that's not much of a problem. 6.76 miles per hour. No, it isn't. I do know Mercury does not spin fast enough to make it as dramatic as the Riddick movie. But again, um, a bit toasty on Mercury though. But because it's no atmosphere, I think it's the night side of the planet gets cold and freezes, not freezes, but is very cold, and then the other side is heated. So of course you've got the cold and hot part going on too, which could be a thing. Move too fast and it's brutally cold. Move too slow and it's heat. So you always have this moving ring around the planet of the balance between hot and cold. That would be really cool to play with. Okay, so let's move over to Venus. Venus is another place where we have an environment where the greenhouse effect is so terrible that the planet itself is just a boiling mass of, again, a blasted landscape that's so hot it melts lead. So again, you don't want to be down there, and if you are down there, it might only be for an extremely short amount of time. If your setting has enough technology to survive, create something that can survive down there, maybe mecha or mining machines or something that only lasts for a short time. There might be space elevators that get materials from the surface and bring them up to aerostated habitats that float in the upper atmosphere, which is the other environment. The upper atmosphere, poison gases that you can breathe, but as long as you have maybe a breathing apparatus, you might be able to float in the upper eddies, or maybe you have like ram jets on space on your suits that can draw in the gases and then spit them out the back end to use that as propulsion or something. Yeah. Dead Man says, and there's a sulfuric acid in the air. Yeah, it looks pretty, but you don't want to breathe it in, right? Again, maybe shooting the person might not be effective, but taking their air mask off might be far more effective as they start breathing in the sulfuric acid, and their esophagus bleeds out inside of their body, and their skin, gets pitted and whatnot. So yes, absolutely. There's also the fear of re-entering the surface. So you could have running gunfights. I know I'm bringing up running gunfights all the time, but you could have the battles that are on the outer skin of the aerostats on the balconies, and if you fall over, it might be like Cloud City in Star Wars. Hey, you go falling, that's your ass, right? That you're dead. Of course, you may have multiple layers, and it might be safety nets or places and whatnot. So you might not do a save or die kind of thing, but you could have the act of of having a fight and getting shot in the chest, and you hit the enemy and you make them trip and fall and kick them over the edge into the unknown abyss of what's below down, down below you. And of course, there is the idea of letting in the sulfuric acid into the aerostat itself, open up those airlocks, and it's pretty dangerous. Rickard says having to move between bunkers, so you have to travel short distances on the surface, and the walkway seal has been compromised. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, it could be like a ton of walkways to walk from one area to another. Like you said, they could be bunkers, maybe what is it? Aero mining, where you could have an industrial complex that floats in the air, and all it does is suck in the chemicals, the sulfuric acid and other chemicals in the upper atmosphere to process them. And maybe they're linked by, like you said, by walkways. And now you have the choice, okay, I've got to leave this seal to go through a walkway to get to the other sealed area. And compromising those might be a thing where, sure, the bunkers are sealed off because that's what they're supposed to be sealed. They're supposed to take in the gases, process them, and keep them sealed. And all you need to do is have a hacker or a saboteur and boom, blow a seal, and that stuff starts spreading around. And it could be, maybe the PCs can outrun the gas as it starts to seep out to close yet another airlock behind them, and maybe trapping the enemy behind them behind a sealed door, or having to choose. Maybe there are slow PCs and you have to choose, do I close the airlock, trapping the PCs in the sulfuric acid, acidic air, or do I let them into where we are, but then the sulfuric acid follows behind us? You know what I mean? You always have to have a red shirt that gets trapped behind an airlock, pounding on the glass as you see their body disintegrate, right? You have to have a red shirt that does that. There's no other way but to have someone to do that. Another idea of leaving Venus and coming to Earth? The Earth, if we had not inhabited Earth, we would think of Earth as a water planet. We basically 70% of the planet is underwater. So you have yourselves an aquatic environment, and aquatic environments are in everything, including science fiction, right? And even in our medieval gaming, we have aquatic environments. There's the idea that Europa, and I'm probably wrong on that, one or more of the moons around Saturn and or Jupiter is believed to be a giant ice ball with a liquid center. Rickard says, yeah, Europa's the right one. Thank you very much. The idea of having maybe from 5 to 60 miles of ice on the surface, drilling down through it. You could probably use like heat drillers, where the drilling machines just carve out areas using heat and letting it freeze behind you. And then having maybe stalactites hang down, stalagmites. So stalactites and stalagmites. Well, anyway, so Deadman says Europa, Ceres, dozens of others. Yeah. So imagine these worlds where technology allows us to put habitats in the icy layer, maybe even making cities out of the stalactites. So you can see out of the stalactites, and then having an aquatic environment inside the liquid center. Sure, it's pretty cold. Maybe the icy layer maybe stops a lot of the radiation, and then you could have bioformed humanoids and also aquatic machines of different sizes, from personal all the way up to like city-sized things roving around the aquatic layer. Enceladus is also confirmed for Saturn's moon, Rickard says. And something that, this is just a side note, I don't want to say it's a pet peeve of mine, but a lot of science fiction is us going from Earth to other star systems. And I feel like we forget our own solar system, because there's so many unique areas in our own solar system that I think it's not given enough credit for how, despite the vastness of space, we have a ton of unexplored areas that I think could be absolutely used and abused in our science fiction settings, in our science fiction media, whether it's comic books and whatever, tabletop RPGs and whatnot. And that's one of the other things I love about Eclipse Phase, is that they don't ignore that. There's a ton of moons, asteroids, of many sizes. We know that Jupiter has moons that are as large or larger than our own moon, and even there's a possibility even larger than our own, as large as Earth's size as its moons. So Saturn and Jupiter may be its own stellar system. Rickard says, fun fact about Europa, it's warm enough for liquid water by tidal squeezing. Yep. Like if you were to constantly squeeze a rubber ball, it will get warm. Yeah, the tidal squeezing, I believe, is from the gravity. So the tidal squeezing, like you said, is like squeezing a ball. It makes the inside liquidy. So if you're giant size, you could probably poke a straw in it and drink it if you add some flavor to it. So yeah, Deadman brings up the octopi of the hidden concern from Eclipse Phase. Yeah, if you didn't know, there is a criminal organization of octopi known as the Hidden Concern that lives in the depths of Europa, and they run a criminal organization. And of course, the tongue-in-cheek part is they have their tentacles everywhere. Right. So playing an octopi might be, as a PC, some of the players are like, I don't want to play one of those. Oh, you mean I get to swim through the icy depths of this world? Hell yeah. Deadman says Ceres. Is it Ceres? My fault. I said Europa. But yes, they an octopi criminal organization. Sweet, right? Awesome. Now, we did get to the 7 o'clock moment. I didn't bring up. Now we of course we have icy rings around planets. We have gas giants. We, of course, have the cold of deep space as it gets cold out there. We have the planets like like Titan. What Rickard says, I smell something fishy about this exchange. Yeah. I'm sure it's a tongue-in-cheek thing that they absolutely use, right? That would be awesome. Everyone's like, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. But what's another one? We do have the rings around planets and those facts. We have gravity, radio disruption because of coming off of like Jupiter and Saturn is a big deal. The radiation that comes from it as well. We have the what is the red eye, that big storm that's on Jupiter that's larger than Earth itself, and that storm's been going on for probably tens of thousands of years, and probably a whole lot longer. Deadman says, I'm an octopus, not a fish. Yeah, exactly. Babe, all right, have a good one. Yeah, love you. Rickard says, once they get a tentacle on you, they suck you in. Every time I try to get out, I get 8 tentacles that keep dragging me back in. Yeah, that would be cool. So, but there's plenty of things, whether, what's the other planet? I was about Titan. Titan is another one that people feel that they could inhabit. We could biologically change ourselves to breathe the methane gases and the liquid oceans and such. Tesla, oh yeah, that's right. Tesla Ranger says Saturn has a hexagonal storm at its north pole. It sure does. It's a weird hexagonal storm of storms that has this weird regular shape to it, which is, some say it's like from the gravity and the magnetic field and whatnot. Sorry about that, guys. But there's so many celestial events. We're not even talking about comets, meteors, space debris. We didn't talk about the asteroid belt or Mars. There's plenty of those in our solar system. And again, turn that volume up to 11. You can take other planetary systems as well and just turn them up to make something pretty interesting, I think. Rickard says, as for our solar system and versus other systems, I think it's a question of technology level, time in the future, and general feel of the setting. Of course, if you're Eclipse Phase is very much a transhumanist hard setting. So it's the idea that we don't really have faster than light travel, but we did have the ability to expand through our own solar system versus, say, let's say you're setting, the people of Earth are given the technology to go faster than light, then maybe inhabiting our own solar system might be circumvented by the fact that we want to go to Alpha Centauri to meet these aliens that live there who gave us the technology. So sure, depending on your setting and depending on like the gritty feel versus the cinematic feel, is it more space opera and more pulpy versus hard science fiction, and what is the history of your technological level? Sure. And has it regressed, or is it stabilized, regressing, or going into the future where more technologies are coming about? And Rickard says it's hard to work in aliens in a soul system only game, at least aliens that we can talk to. Absolutely. Again, I know I'm bringing up Eclipse Phase again, but they specifically point out that they want their alien contact to be completely alien. No Star Trek face pasties aliens, right? With the basically different ears, different ears and noses and different skin color. But basically they're just humans. They're like saying, no, these aliens speak in, I don't know, they speak in radio signals, and they don't use the same math we do in language, and it takes forever to talk to them, and they have different motivations. They don't believe the things that we do. They should be completely alien, is their suggestion. And I believe that probably our first sentient alien contact will be something like that. That it won't be, oh, they look just like us, and wow, it's another, Latin romantic language that we can speak, right? Rickard says, unless they come here, it could be cool to have a reverse uplift setting where the aliens are here to uplift us. Ooh. There's also the idea that we are our own aliens, that humanity has spread far enough in our own solar system or beyond, and there's enough of a time lag and enough biological modification that we become our own aliens to ourselves. So the people who've been modified to live within the surfaces of Ceres and Europa, and what are some of the other ones you guys said? Shoot, I didn't mean to do that. Enceladus and plenty of those. If they're modified to live there and enough generations have gone by, probably at least 3 or more, culture may be different. Their purpose in life may be different. Humans that have been able to transplant their brains into the bodies of octopi are going to have a completely different outlook living in an aquatic world than they will if they live on the moon or Earth or Mercury or, orbiting Neptune or something like that. So we might be our own aliens to each other, and the idea of uplifting animals. So they may be the aliens that are within us as well, uplifting like orangutans and bonobos and chimpanzees and crows and elephants and horses and dogs and cats and things, like really intelligent things. Animals might be the aliens that are amongst us. And all it takes is one person to start doing it, and then it can get out of hand. Rickard says, so the aliens might be a part of the galactic community, but they have just started to uplift us. So we are kept in soul system to master our system before we are allowed into the big league. Yeah, I could see that very, very well. Being a thing. Eclipse Phase kind of hints at that, with the Pandora gates being a thing where there are these uncovered gates, i.e. stargates, that you can go to other worlds. And yes, it could be we're given just enough technology to become spacefaring, but not enough technology to become extrastellar from our own system. So yeah, it very much could be aliens who have contacted us, but basically are not giving us the ability to leave. And that could be a huge meta plot, whether there are people who are trying to connive to get access to interstellar space travel, faster than light travel. And maybe the aliens are looking at us like, you do realize every time you try to deceive us to take it, you're not making friends. Like, we want you to be part of our community, but you're pretty much putting yourself backwards in this. You're going to have humans that are going to ignore that mandate, right? When aliens are like, we're smarter than you, so we want you to stay here and live a couple thousand lifetimes before you join us. Yeah, they're going to be humans that are like, I ain't waiting that long. I'm not waiting 5 years. So yeah, by the way, there's a ton of environments. We didn't even get really into a lot of the man-made environments that are problems, like uh, man-made factories and robots that are trying to terraform that we encounter in our worlds. The construction of habitats, the destruction of habitats. Whether they're dome cities or built underground. The piercing of aquifers, as as we're trying to find water on, say, Mars, and an aquifer is punctured and spills water into the habitats, where we didn't really want them to go. I mean, there's so many other things. Re-entry, falling into a world that has an atmosphere, and burning up in the atmosphere and trying to escape whatever it is that's falling into the atmosphere before you die, as well. Rickard says Sol is technically the backwater system of their sector of space. They have been given charge to cultivate humanity. Yeah, it's like maybe the aliens in the past were thinking that they were just going to dump their trash here, and they found out they're just living things, and so they basically say, yeah, you 8 aliens at the bottom of the barrel, you go handle them, because we don't really want to deal with them yet. So it's a possibility there might be an hierarchy where the aliens we think are brilliant are like are like the sanitation department of this giant intergalactic community, and so they're helping us because maybe they think we will help them. That'd be kind of cool too. Yeah, like humans are like, I just found out that they're not as smart as we think they are. That'd be pretty bad. But anyway, guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you for educating myself and maybe others that have been part of this. Maybe even giving some great ideas for some interstellar and maybe planetary environments that some people can play with. Maybe coming up with some really great or dynamic environments that you can have. So instead of going like, hey, I wanted to have the players break into a place and steal some plans, maybe that thing is floating in the upper atmosphere of a poisonous gas planet, or it's the important information is held inside of something in the deep underwater reaches of Ceres, and they have to go through 60 miles of ice before they get they get into the aquatic regions of the interior of the planet or something. Rico says that would be an interesting generational campaign, though. First uplift, then first step in the galactic stage, then full on sci-fi or full on cinematic sci-fi. You know what, I don't want to say this is a problem. Don't quote me on that part of it, but one of the issues sometimes in role-playing games and in a lot of settings, whether it's television or movies or graphic novels, is that things tend to have a lot of static to them. They don't change very often. Every once in a while, you'll have someone who comes up with a new type of technology, and that technology never seems to spread. Star Wars is a perfect example of how technology and culture has not changed, but that would be cool to do a generational thing where the PCs may be completely involved in playing through the generational, stepping further into an intergalactic society. That'd be cool. Jump a few generations between campaigns. Hell yeah. There might be planets or space stations named after the player characters, right? Hey, first step into this other world, and then a few generations later, there's like statues or monuments that detail them, or maybe they came upon another alien race, and now they've been affected by the fact that one of the player characters used to like to drink beer and smash aluminum cans on their forehead. So the people of this planet are like smashing aluminum cans on their forehead in honor of the person who settled them. Because says, now if I only had players. They reached peak tech. Yeah. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining me. Now we did kind of bring up some things, but tomorrow is Future Friday. We're definitely going into technology. I want to bring up something Undo brought up the other day about the problems, air quotes, problems of technology. I feel like fighting against technology isn't the thing you should do. You should embrace it and understand it, and understand the fact that while the PCs have it, the NPCs have it as well. So we're going to go into that as well. So Future Friday tomorrow. This week is brought to you by Dead Man, who really wanted to talk about these kind of things, and I didn't, and I missed Future Friday last week. So blame blame dead man. Guys, have a great one. Again, signing off. Don't measure your loves by your hates. Terrible path to go down. There's no need for you to be a fan of what you have by proving. No need to go down that path by proving that you have to hate something else. And micro hating. Oh, you only like something at a level 7. I like it at a level 9. You suck. So guys, please, again, thank you for joining me. It seems like we're having more people join in, subscribe to the channel. So I think that's really cool too as well. So guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye.